Jeff.
And he's Michael.
And that's totally corny.
We got to change our little thing. It's not Fridays anymore. We have switched. We have switched Wednesdays.
Yeah, it doesn't quite roll off the tongue. The second Wednesday, I don't know. It just Friday's better. So.
Well, I'm not going to change that video. Not yet. It takes a lot of time and effort to change something like that. And I don't have my editing system set up quite. Like I don't have that. Anyway, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you as well. How are you doing?
Busy.
Busy.
Yeah. I mean, we won't go into all the details, but it's good. I've got tasks piled up that I'm knocking out one at a time, trying to keep them prioritized. And you know how it is, juggling. It was my wife's birthday, so that took priority on Monday, and we had a good weekend. But back to work, back to blazing a trail. How are you you're on a new book or something?
I am actually just in the tail end of finishing up writing a book. And so I've got it due to the editors on July 31st. So I have about half a chapter left to write. So I'm actually in pretty good shape for getting it done. But there's an intensity that comes with doing that. I still don't like writing as much as I'm growing in my appreciation of it, but it's still it's a lot of work. So for me,
are you contractually obligated to put out a book every so often, or is it?
No, it's not so much that as it is more every now and again a book will get set, and it's like once a book's set, there's deadlines and stuff like that to meet. So it's not like I have to come up with an idea and figure out how to write, but once there's a decision of okay, we're going to write the book, that sets in place a whole string of events that have to happen. So, and I'm in the midst of that.
You're a part of an infrastructure, and
there you go.
Yeah, that's good. I have been spending time this past week doing some writing, and writing it's a love-hate relationship, as you've kind of just indicated. But it's when I have buckled down, put some concerted effort and focus into articulating something particular. Afterwards, when I'm happy with it, I'm just so grateful. I'm like, okay, that's something God poured through me, and I'm grateful. And I really think that's something I'm called to is to write. I was rereading something that I wrote. The book about Solomon Tehlirian that I wrote. I'm like getting back into it. I'm like, this is an aside. We'll get to our topic here in a second, but an update. There's a person doing their PhD on Solomon Tehlirian, based in Armenia. And I've been made aware of this person, a historian, a very credible, reputable historian, notified me and told me about this person. And another historian, my personal historian, reached out to me and say, hey, this person wants your book to give to that person. And that's like kind of a milestone that somebody that is specializing in my character is seeking out my expertise, at least in my book. I'm like, okay, that's a milestone. So I went back to start rereading it. I'm like, oh, this thing is loaded with details. I bet that person's going, yes, that, confirm that, I confirm that. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. I confirm that. Right. That's inevitably what's going to happen. If that person is really doing their job, they're going to be able to recognize that I'm legit. So,
right. No, it is. I agree with the having written something that contributes and helps people. That is a great role. It does in a lot of sense make it worth writing, but
right. And because I'm a non-Armenian and being an expert in this, and this person is an Armenian that's doing the PhD, it's broadening my exposure in that community. So enough about me. All right, you picked this topic and I approved it and I love it. Will AI make us dumber? All right, astrophysicist, tell us.
Well, it's just kind of fascinating. Here we are talking about writing books because there's been a discussion at my work of, with these large language models, ChatGPT, Lambda, those sorts of things that are out there, that you can use AI to do writing. And I've even I kind of played around with it with a little bit of my writing, and I ended up choosing to do all of the writing myself. I have not had I haven't chosen to use AIs, but there was a study that I came across a few weeks ago where they looked at a group of people, and they divided them up into three groups. One group could just use their brain only, and they had to do various writing tasks. They had one group that could use search engines, do writing tasks, and one group that used large language models and did writing tasks. And they did three different writing tasks. And then at the end of those 3 periods, they switched them so that the large language models only worked with their brains and the brain people worked with the large language models. And then they did analysis of the writing and brain activity and found that the people who had been using the large language models all along had much less brain connectivity in the way they wrote and in their activity. And so there's this, the way they did it is like you're developing cognitive debt by using large language models. And I thought, that's interesting, because a lot of the impetus I've heard, and then I'll throw this question to you, a lot of the impetus I've heard for using AIs and things like that is that it makes you more efficient. And I agree, it does make you a lot more efficient, but I wonder if in using that efficiency, we're losing other things that are more important. And so I'm just, that was the study that caught my mind that generated this topic. So I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Well, let me just answer the question, because the topic is in the form of a question. Will AI make us dumber? And my answer is yes and no.
Hey, you're stealing my answer. That's all.
Ah!
Man, you don't get to do that.
I'm way ahead of you. That's why we get along so well. Yes and no. Like, will the automobile make us lazier? Yes and no, because now instead of walking and getting that exercise to go to the grocery store and building those muscles and carrying those bags back, you can hop in a car and run and do it fast, blah, blah, blah. It's more efficient, and it'll make you weaker because you're not getting the exercise, right? That's kind of an analogous. You're not working out the way you would have, had you not had this efficient, convenient technology at your disposal.
Right.
And so, yes, there will be people that use it as shortcuts out of laziness, out of I got to get this done, or out of if I crank out more content, I'll make more money, blah blah blah. Right? There's all kinds of you might say negative applications. However, it's not good or evil. There will be those, like, for me personally, just give you my personal anecdote, why I felt this was actually timely, not just in the time we live in, but me personally in what I'm working on. When you're trying to make a television series, for example, and I want to do 40 episodes, right? 10 episodes per season, and I want to do 60-minute episodes, right? That's a lot of work and a lot of money to hire writers and researchers. But for me, it's like, well, what I want to do is be as historically accurate as possible. So it doesn't necessarily take creativity or there's a creative element to it. But as far as getting the information, laying it out, well, if the data's there, I don't need the researchers to all pull that information. If it's there and we have it accessible, then an AI can help do those outlining and get all the data for me. But if it's a more creative endeavor, I think you need more human interaction. But so there's just like the automobile can get you physically there, you need somebody driving it, right? You always have to have a human element to really use the tool the right way. And so I don't think AI will ever take away human initiative, human innovation. It's just certain people will do it. It'll be certain people that take the tools and are able to do exponentially more creatively and grow and contribute to human advancement and progression. And then there will be this other swath of people that use it for the negative and kind of are lazy or whatever. But so,
well, no,
sorry to steal your answer.
No, that is very similar to my answer, but it does. I think that two things stand in my mind as I'm thinking about this. Is that I have noticed um, we don't. This is a somewhat useless skill at this point, but I remember when I was growing up, back before you had a cell phone, where you just said call Bill and it knew who Bill was and called. I can memorize things pretty well. I mean, it's like I would have, I probably had somewhere 50 to 100 telephone numbers of people. Said, if you wanted to call this, oh yeah, it's this number, and the 10 digit, the area code and the whole, so it's all 10 digits in there. Now, I also have that same sort of thing where if you if so I'm a fairly busy person, but I can keep track of my schedule, and it's like, generally it's about a month or so. It's like if it's within the month, I may know I'm traveling in 3 months, I'm going to have to come back and get that, but I could tell you, okay, in 2 weeks I've got a meeting on Tuesday at 10. I could do all that in my head. The moment I had to start using a calendar, I lost basically the ability to do it. So it wasn't like
Interesting.
by using a
Interesting.
calendar, it helped me remember things better. It's by using it kind of was a bimodal. As long as I was doing it, I could do it. The moment I had this other tool, I it didn't have any reason, other time pressures, whatever it was.
This piece was removed from your your mind. I'm like, it's taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. But it also removes something from your
Yeah, it was a skill set that I had that I lost.
mm.
And so that's, I agree with your assessment. There will be people who use it well, people who use it poorly. But the difference in some sense between the car and AI is that you see physical things faster. I don't know how we're ever going to see that our mental abilities are going away. These are the questions that I have in there, where I largely agree with your answer, but I wonder if this might be something different because it's interacting with how we think, how we interact with people, that if you lose it, you don't have any way of seeing that it's gone. So,
Well, we are as a species a bunch of negative Nancy's.
okay.
we tend to like the dirty laundry and the pessimistic spin on things.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, in that, we're ignoring, and this is something I try to reemphasize over and over again to people, is there is so much good going on in the world that we will never know about in our lifetimes, and it far outweighs the bad that's going on. I genuinely believe it, and as my evidence is, life has gotten better. Period. Right? Take human history in 500-year chunks.
Yeah.
Right? Take human history in 500-year chunks, and go back. Would you rather live 500 years ago? No dentistry, no indoor plumbing, no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no, right? And would you rather? And you'll have your purists say, "Oh, simpler times, yes," but you also have to farm to survive, right? You have to go, and so life not only is life getting better in that sense, but wealth generation is accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
And so that standards of living globally, it's not just some people's lives are getting better, but the human species overall is getting better. That the abject poverty, the percentage of humanity that's under the line of abject poverty is shrinking, and it's shrinking at an exponential rate. And so, yeah, there's negative things that come with advancement, but God is in control, right? I know that may be like the cop out answer, but God created us as creators, and so we're not going to stop creating. We're not going to stop innovating. We're not going to stop coming up with ideas. But we also have this sin, and so the good things that we create are going to be used for evil. But God is in control, right? More good is happening. More good is going to happen as a result. I'm
yeah. Well, and I largely agree with you. I mean, I do agree with your assessment that, and just in terms of physical existence and what we have access to and the things that we can do, yes, things are so much better. I wonder here, because your answer is yes and no, and I wonder if your answer is yes and no or there's another aspect to that yes or no is you say, okay, I also frame it in the context of cell phones and social media, that there was this kind of sense of, I'll put it in the negative to highlight the positive part of it, is that there was kind of this, oh, this is good technology, we can do this. And there are people who kind of said, wait a second, maybe this isn't the best. Now there's two approaches there. You could say, okay, wait a second, maybe this isn't the best, let's not do it. Or you could say, oh, you're just being a negative Nelly, let's ignore you. And in either instance, you end up with a problem. One is that if you say, no, let's just not do it, then you don't end up with the benefits the technology brings. But if you ignore the people who say, wait a second, maybe there's a problem, you end up with kind of where we are now at some level, where you've got all of this increased depression, anxiety, social disconnection, because we did something we weren't ready for. And so it seems like I would argue that, yes, God is in control, but he's also put people who see some who are, let's go do whatever, and the others who say, wait a second, let's make sure. And if we neglect to account for all of that, that's where the problem is going to arise. So how do we help people do that well as a society? Because we don't seem to make great decisions well as a society.
I have the answer. I have the answer.
You do?
You hinted at it. You said we suddenly, an approximate paraphrase. We do these things before we're ready, right? We're not ready for it. Like, well, let's just wait until we're ready.
Or
how do we determine when we're ready, right? That's the problem. It's like, don't get married and have children until you can afford it. What? How do you know what you can afford? How do you, right? I'm not going to have children until I can afford it. I'm going to have a job and I'm going to make $1 million, and then I think I'll be able to afford it. But by the time you get there, if you decided not to have children, your life will be way busier with other things. You'll be like, I'm not ready. So when are you ready? Right? So we dump things, things get dumped into the public square or whatever, whenever they are.
right.
And also have to trust that, okay, God allowed that to happen. He wasn't surprised that things were coming. But I want to use two examples to kind of highlight what I'm talking about. Big corporations have been guilty, and some probably still are guilty of dumping byproducts just into nature, into the water system, right? I just saw this article about 500,000 people in India that were adversely affected by some chemical plant that was just dumping crap into the water system. The LA, you wouldn't be able to breathe. There was a day when you would come outside and you wouldn't be able to breathe. And so we have these corrective measures, right? Environmentalism, conservatism, conservationism, etc. And these things, there's a battle between the two sides. It's like profit motive. We're producing things that are good for people, but we're destroying the earth, and you're evil because you're destroying the earth, right? And so these two forces are battling each other. And now you can walk outside in LA and have a nice clear blue sky. And people are still profiting and making money, right? And so there is this push on both sides that hones it down to something that, okay, we shouldn't completely abuse our planet. There are good ways. We should not also shut down industry, right? So that we come to these happy mediums. And so with technology and social media, which is where you went, and I understand why you went there, because social media is destroying a lot of young people's lives, sapping their initiatives, sapping their direction in life, just stuck in these algorithms, right? So a business has created intentionally an algorithm to keep people doing that, right? To keep them incentivized to stay there and watch the next ad and to get another follower or to advance, right? There's these, and it's been testified to, yes, we created these things to be addictive, these apps on social media. We've created them to be addictive. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds evil. It does sound bad. But what if people at some point get addicted to something that causes them to grow in knowledge and health, right? What if there's an app that comes out that by using that app, you actually learn, you actually grow, you actually become more intelligent, right?
Mhm.
Becoming addicted to a technology isn't in itself evil if the addiction is to goodness and health, right? I know I'm speaking kind of
Yeah, no,
idealistically, but
right.
that there are things that make our lives better that we never knew could make our lives better, right? And those things tend to rise. The automobile, right? It's like, okay, it's used for death all the time, but we're not going to get rid of it because overall it's better to have it than not. Uh,
No, I agree, and my position, or what I've been trying to argue and articulate and hone in my is I I saw the negative consequences of social media and the way I approached it. This is part of what drives me is like, during I think it was the 2020 election cycle, there were, as much as I had tried to craft and make sure I was listening, had people that I followed that I agreed with, people that I followed that I disagreed with, that I thought, okay, I've kind of got this balance to help. I realized at some point in there, the people I had chosen to follow were not the people who I was getting fed. It was like there was something bigger than just what I decided, and I wasn't aware of it. And so I became a lot more active in thinking about that. But it also, I just got very depressed, if you will. And it's like at some point I'm like, wait a second, what happened here? How am I'm actually trusting in political machinery. I'm trusting it instead of pointing my trust to God, if you, and so it changed the way I thought about that. And I would also say, just as a general rule, I'm fairly uh, resilient. My training in science, my just general, I'm kind of resilient to being caught into little pools like that. And here I found myself caught in a pool, and so I'm
right?
trying to think, okay,
How did that
if if
happen?
if it happened to me, what can I learn about it, and then how can I do things to help other people not get caught there? And I think there's I agree that yes, AI is a technology and it's going to be good. And I think there's a lot of cool things because, here I'm talking about cognitive drain on it, but it's also we're developing AIs that help us diagnose people with certain types of aphasia and maybe able to. There's for every bad thing you can name, I can name a good thing AI can do. And for every good
Right,
thing an AI
right.
can do, I can name a bad thing. So what's the difference there? The difference is the people that are using it. And
Yeah,
so how as a people do we grow? And I haven't found a great answer to that, but I do know that Christianity is the answer to that because whatever we're doing, as long as it's pointing us towards God, then God's going to say, yes, God's going to help us grow and mature and use it well. And so I think Christianity as a worldview comes out in spades as the winner, the more technology we have like this. And I'm just trying to figure out how do I articulate that
well,
concept well.
to that point, and here's an example or a case in point, that is I think a harbinger tends to be a bad thing. An omen is also a bad. Is there a good word for a portent? Good
Yeah.
portent. See, we're negative Nancy's. We come up with these words that are only negative. Harbinger.
I think we take the words and make them negative over time. So.
Right. Okay. So harbinger and omen and portent in the good connotation
Okay.
Of things to come is with the now the expansive decentralization of information. Right. We don't have three networks telling us a narrative to believe. We have access. With that has come the decline of this up and coming generation. They're fleeing Islam, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
as
fair.
you and I are talking about Christianity, it's not just because it makes us feel good and it's done more good in the world. It's actually fact based, right?
Right.
It's what you do for a living, right? As you point that everything in our world is pointing to Jesus Christ, and I'm not just saying that to try and convince you. Just start digging in, and start
Right.
realizing from science to philosophy to theology to human harmony, etc. All of these things point toward our Creator and Christianity being true, and in doing so, it exposes these strongholds that
Mhm.
exalted
Right.
themselves against the knowledge of God, right? There's these strongholds, and Islam is being one of them, that has been perpetuated by force rather than by persuasion, rather than by
Yeah.
epiphanies, right? Rather than by, just coming to that, spirit bearing witness to spirit. It's force,
Mhm.
oppressing and bringing into subservience, right? And so when we as civilized humans can now, we don't have, we can do this where there's not somebody with a gun forcing me to believe something in my face, where you can be far removed and people can access it, as the young generation of Muslims are, and they're
Mhm.
realizing that Islam is a bunch of nonsense that they've just been brainwashed to believe. And so the migration, this next upcoming generation is migrating away from that, which means technology is a tool that's being used to tear down those strongholds, right? And
Yeah.
so, and
Yes.
that's a good thing, right? For Islam to be eventually, I believe it will eventually be passe. It'll be, oh, remember there used to be this world religion that people believed in Muhammad. It's going to be a thing of the past, similar to the Darwinian gradualistic paradigm, right? Like, I believe those things will ultimately be passe. Oh, you still believe that foolishness? I believe that's coming because of technology.
It may well. I will. So I think we may be approaching this from two sides of the same coin, but I think so. There's this aspect to where people who didn't have access to truth now get access to the truth, and I do agree. That decentralization is a very good thing. I also think that requires. It used to be that it was hard to find the truth because there was so little information out there. Now there's so much information that it's hard to find truth. And
We
so,
need the AI to sort it out for us.
uh, no, I'm not going there.
I, I got something I want to bring up, but you can finish your
but
point.
but I think the way I look at this is there are lots of things when there was a deprivation, there's a skill set you can learn that, or rather when I didn't have access to a lot of food, by eating healthy foods, it was relatively easy to stay healthy. And I thought, oh, okay, I've got a pretty healthy attitude towards eating. And then when I had access to lots of foods, I could still eat the healthy foods. And I started gaining weight because there was just more. What I thought I was healthier, I wasn't as mature as I thought I was. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the mindset. It's like, it's not that I think that this is bad, but it is a powerful enough tool that we need to be pretty skilled and mature to use it well. And that's really, I think, what I want to encourage is how do we develop the maturity so that we can use this tool well? Because you can say, oh yeah, what an automobile and what AI can do. In some sense, I grew up with automobiles, so there's this
Right.
I'm dealing with that from a more mature perspective. But AI has the capacity to do things I haven't even thought of or dreamed of, which means it also requires me to up my game and be more mature to know how to use it. And how do we encourage people to do that? Because I think you could make a reasonable argument that we've done a lot of things that haven't driven people to become more mature. They've allowed
Yeah.
that we've allowed people and encouraged people to be immature.
Yeah, and in an over reliance upon the technology, or
Yes,
a
yes.
reliance on it more, some of its more negative traits rather than its positive traits, or et cetera. For example, I asked a friend about this one. I was trying to figure out. It was a artifact. I'm like,
Mhm.
can you figure out what this is? And this guy scanned it into his AI and it spit something out. And I'm like, oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, look, interesting. And then, but on its face, I knew some of this data was false. It's like,
Okay.
okay, the AI seems to have identified this thing and was spitting back a translation, but I already knew some of it was wrong. I'm like,
Right.
if I didn't already know some of that was wrong,
Yep.
you tend to trust the AI. Oh, well, it found it and it must be blah blah blah. I'm like, it's AI has to be trained, right? AI has
Yep.
to, if it has partial information, it's going to conjecture and spit some things back. So it can be problematic, and so we're just navigating. It's the wild wild west. It's a whole new world out there. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, let's be cautious and optimistic at the same time.
Yeah.
I started far more pessimistic and cautious, and I'm developing more cautious and an optimistic attitude. Because I agree
Attaboy.
with your
Attaboy.
assessment. I think there's a lot of great potential for this. And whether other people do or not, all I can do is do what God's put before me and encourage other people to do the same. So
Yeah, we just need to seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added. People need to take that into consideration when they're using these things and developing them and working on them and writing about them, etc., and discussing them on a podcast like ours. Good to see you, my friend. All right, so we'll be back here next month on a Wednesday. All right.
sounds good.
Bye, everybody. And